Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions here to talk about The X-Files, Season 1, Episode 10, titled Fallen Angel. The episode's description reads as follows. The future of the X-Files project is jeopardized after Mulder secretly infiltrates the government cover-up of a UFO crash. The episode was written by Howard Gordon and Alex Gonza. This is easily the best episode that Alex Gonza is attached to. As you might recall, I have not been fond of his previous efforts, though his writing partner had some successes as the series goes along. The episode is directed by Larry Shaw. His only other episode is another one I will cover in my first season commitment to the show, in Fire, and that's 2 episodes from now. He has 62 directorial credits. The episode originally aired on November 19th, 1993. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I recommend you go check it out and come back and give me a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please follow and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to my channel and hitting the bell so that you're notified when new content drops. Alright, so, as I've said previously, in the previous episode, in fact, this is a vast improvement over the previous episode space. In fact, the 3 of the next 4 are pretty strong episodes. I'm not quite certain how I feel about Fire just yet. We shall see when I actually cover that episode. This is an early episode in the mythology of the series, and comparatively speaking, it's a much simpler story than we would get as the series progressed. The episode marks the first appearance of the character of Max Fennig, a pretty memorable character within the series, even though he really only appeared in 3 episodes. And he's not really in the other 2 episodes that he makes appearances in all that much. The episode begins at night, there's a fire in the forest, and a sheriff happens to notice it and begin to investigate. He's played by Alvin Sanders, 165 credits for him, including RoboCop, Alpha Command, which he was a regular in, and that is a series that I never knew even existed. I mean, I've certainly heard of other RoboCop properties, but that is not one that I happen to notice, ever, until now. That also happened to feature Dean Haglund, who would eventually play a lone gunman in this series. He was also in Smallville, and he has a second appearance on this show as well as a different character in the second season. Meanwhile, the military is tracking a flying object. One of the 3 people that are involved in this scene I can identify as Colonel Calvin Henderson, who will play a big part in this episode. He's played by Marshall Bell. He's got 142 credits for him, including the movie Starship Troopers Total Recall, and an episode of House MD. The Colonel calls in to confirm a fallen angel, hence the title of this episode. We cut back to the sheriff as he investigates. We get a point of view of an invisible alien that eventually attacks him and causes a bright light. And his fate is uncertain, though it certainly doesn't look good for him. And credits. When we come back, we see a news report, and then a conversation with Mulder and Deep Throat. Deep Throat, of course, played by Jerry Hardin. We haven't seen him since Ghost in the Machine. Deep Throat is telling him about the downed spaceship, which of course is not being reported as such. A cleanup crew has been sent to sanitize the area, and he tells Mulder that he has 24 hours before they successfully make it seem like nothing ever happened. We cut to Mulder in the woods, late at night, and there's some kind of laser perimeter set up. Basically, what this is a means to track and see if the alien gets beyond it, because if it does, it's kind of like a security system, like you'll see in museums, in television shows when they're trying to commit a heist, stealing some kind of diamond or something or other. Mulder spots the cleanup crew, led by Colonel Henderson. He sneaks underneath one of the vehicles and takes a little bit of a ride. Later that night, Mulder strikes gold when he spots them cleaning up a downed spaceship and proceeds to take pictures. Unfortunately, he is unaware of the person behind him, who cold-cocks him. We then see Henderson questioning Mulder, and he calls what Mulder witnessed an ecological disaster, and he tells him that he made a huge mistake coming here. The biggest of his life, in fact. Henderson tells him to forget what he saw, while Mulder yells after him that they both know what they saw was a downed aircraft. Spacecraft, in fact. He's led into a cell where we meet Max, who uses the phrase, "trust no one." In fact, it's the first time that we hear it within the series spoken. Max is played by Scott Bellis. He has 33 credits for him, including Time Cop, a couple of episodes of Smallville, and an episode of The Outer Limits. He introduces himself as a member of the National Committee of Aerial Phenomenon, and he has a hat that he wears that has those initials on it. He goes on, but Mulder doesn't really say too much in return. The next morning, Max is gone. Scully has shown up to basically chew Mulder out. She's pretty mad. Section Chief McGrath has apparently stepped over Section Chief Blevins, which I guess is their main person in charge of them, to get Mulder out of the Bureau and to shut the X-Files down. Mulder practically is rolling his eyes when he says, "What else is new?" Scully continues yada-yada-ing at him, not understanding why he's always breaking protocol. Hey Scully, have you met this man? Surely by now you know how this man operates. Scully gives him the classified lie, which I believe was something like an Iranian nuclear missile that was downed or something along those lines, which she predictably believes, and he just as predictably doesn't. We cut to the laser perimeter and see the cloaked figure go through it. That can't be a good sign. In fact, there's no indication whatsoever that anybody was alerted to the fact that the alien got through that thing. Mulder has a hearing at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, and they go back to his hotel room. His place is trashed, and he soon finds Max trying to climb out a window. Max has been following Mulder's career. His travel expenses at the FBI are a matter of public record, and Max read an article of his that he published under a pseudonym, but Max figured out who it was because the pseudonym happened to be an anagram for Fox Mulder, and this was in Omni magazine, which, by the way, at the time was a real magazine. Max has some rather amazing tech, and he plays the call of the deputy witnessing the crash and meeting his fate. Meanwhile, Henderson talks to his bosses about not letting it get away. Mulder and Scully go and talk to the deputy's wife, but this is not a very fruitful conversation, and she has no interest in talking to them and is rather quite hostile. As it turns out, the government has threatened that if she says anything to anyone, that they'll take away her pension. Henderson and co. go after the alien, but his men meet a similar fate as the deputy did. Mulder and Scully speak to Dr. Oppenheim, no relation to Dr. Oppenheimer, who was initially not very cooperative to their questions, and that's once again because the military threatened him. But he does end up telling him that the bodies had 90% of burns all over their bodies, but before they could examine the bodies further, they were taken away. Mulder thinks they might have been exposed to radiation. Scully thinks that the radiation would be consistent with the government story, and if they don't make the inquiry tomorrow, there won't be any X-Files anymore to investigate any further. Well, we got 200 episodes or so to go, plus a couple of movies, so at this current time I'm feeling rather safe about the X-Files remaining open. Just then, the military, on the hunt for the alien, the ones that were on the hunt for the alien rather, are wheeled into the hospital, and they don't look good. Henderson and Mulder argue. Mulder wants him to rethink the approach of hunting down the alien like an animal, and Henderson wants both him and Scully gone. But Dr. Oppenheim speaks up for Scully that she's needed as a doctor. In response to this, he only kicks out Mulder. Mulder goes to Max's trailer and finds him seizing on the floor, and this goes on for a lot longer than it needed to be. I kind of feel like they should have trimmed this scene just a little tiny bit. But we do see a high level of empathy for Mulder here that we don't typically see from him, as he takes care of Max until he regains consciousness. Max claims that him having a seizure is impossible. He hasn't had an episode in 7 years, and he does not want to go to the hospital. They talk about his condition for a while, and he says he used to wake up as a kid in strange places with no idea of how he got there. Max lays down, and Mulder notices a mark behind his ears. Mulder goes to the literature and realizes that this fits with alien abductions. Scully arrives back to the hotel. Apparently they only managed to save 2 of the men that went to the hospital. Mulder tells her that he thinks Max is an abductee, and Mulder wants Scully to look at Max's scar. Scully is initially reluctant, thinking that Max is psychotic, but Mulder says that Max is not the one who thinks he's been abducted, that it's Mulder himself who thinks that. So he would like her medical opinion. She offers to give it as long as Mulder packs and gets ready to go back to DC to face the music, so he may have a fighting chance. Meanwhile, the military is tracking a much larger craft than the original one that crashed, and we see a fisheye view of something entering Max's trailer and causing blood to come out of his ear. That's kind of creepy. Mulder and Scully go to Mulder's trailer to find him missing, but blood on his pillow. And on the radio, they hear evidence of more alien activity. Mulder thinks the aliens and Max being in this area are not a coincidence. Scully wants to go back to DC so Mulder has somewhat of a chance of saving his job, but what do you think that Mulder ends up doing? Max ends up going to the military base and ends up frying some soldiers. How he did that, I don't really know, but he did somehow. Probably because of the alien involvement with Max. Mulder and Scully find Max on the ground babbling incoherently about them coming for him. Henderson arrives with his crew outside of wherever it is that Mulder and Scully are. They end up arresting Scully, who's exited the building for some reason, and prepares to storm the area that Mulder and Max are in. They detect a thermal image of a third entity approaching, and this entity comes up on Mulder hot, but doesn't kill him. It just throws him away from Max, and Mulder eventually ends up finding Max floating in the air. He calls for him, but there is no answer. And then there's a bright light and a flash, and then we cut to Henderson. Henderson decides to storm the castle, where they find Mulder, but no sight of Max, and Max ends up grabbing the hat that apparently has dropped. Mulder tells Henderson that Max is gone, that they did not get to him in time, and Henderson has Mulder arrested. Back in DC, the Section Chief McGrath, played by Frederick Coppin, he has 101 credits for him. His last was an excellent movie called Identity. He was also in an Invisible Man episode as a villain, who was an experiment who could poison people with his hands. He asks Scully some questions, and it's really not looking good for Mulder here. Scully ends up exiting the room, and Mulder makes a joke about the gallows being put up in the town square. He doesn't seem to have much faith that this is going to go well, as he says he's surprised he lasted this long. Scully picks up a paper that says the toxic cleanup was a success, which is obviously a BS story. Mulder argues with the section chief, McGrath, and Henderson wrote a report saying that Max's body was found in the cargo container. Mulder tells the chief that you can't hide the truth much longer because too many out there know the truth and no one has jurisdiction over the truth. And clearly this report was a lie. We then see Section Chief McGrath walking with purpose, strolling really, to a mysterious figure demanding to know why their decision was countermanded about Mulder. He felt that was their best chance to get rid of him. And the mysterious figure turns out to be Deep Throat, who says, "Keep your friends closer, but your enemies even closer." And we don't know at this scene if Deep Throat is in fact protecting Mulder, or if he's using him for his own agenda. It is highly ambiguous at this point. But that is where the episode ends. And like I said, it was a very good episode. Definitely one of the stronger episodes of the season. It was a good mythology episode before the mythology became incomprehensible, which really took place around Season 4, Season 5. And some could certainly argue that it happened well before that. The next time we meet to talk about an episode of The X-Files, we'll be talking about Eve, which is another strong episode of this series. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of my Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a copy. You can join the Core Production membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. This is Dave from Core Productions, signing off.